You guys, my snake is missing. Step 1, look on the ground. Step 2, find your snake. Step 3, pick up your snake. Whew, that was lucky, but sometimes it's a little bit more complicated than that. We're going to talk about what to do if your snake goes missing, how to find them, and very importantly, how to prevent your snake from getting out. Welcome to the Green Room. I'm Bob Bledsoe. I'm sure many people are finding this video because they need to find a snake. So we're going to hold off on Kent shenanigans for now, and we'll talk about prevention in the second half. Right now, let's just get to finding your snake. Okay, so if you can't figure out how your snake could have possibly gotten out of their enclosure, I have two suggestions for you. Do you have a removable background, like one of those styrofoam backgrounds? If so, look behind it. That's probably where your snake is. Number 2, do you have deep substrate? Because snakes, even ball pythons, even if you've never seen them do it before, they sometimes like to burrow, and a lot of times you can find them buried in their substrate. Snakes get lost all the time in deep substrate and behind their backgrounds because they like dark, squishy spaces. Now, if you know 100% that your snake is on the outside of their enclosure, the first thing to understand is their mindset isn't, now's my chance to make a break for it and get out of the house. It's more like, now's my chance to explore outside my enclosure. But the thing is, once they get out of their enclosure, all of a sudden they're a little bit nervous because they're in a new environment, they don't know what's going on. So their first order of business is to hide, to find a dark space to hide. So understand that your snake is probably just hiding somewhere. They're just really good at hiding. So the first thing to do is to not freak out. Take a deep breath. This needs to be a careful, methodical search, and it's not going to help if you're running all over the house like a toddler playing hide and seek. So if the snake hasn't been gone very long, it's most likely hiding in a spot very close to its enclosure. But you've got to look in spots that you didn't even know existed. What could your snake possibly have poked its head into and then squeezed its body through? They'll work really hard and ruin some scales to squeeze their body into tight spaces. You know, everybody says to look in warm spaces, which is true, that's a good idea, but if your snake hasn't been gone very long and your nearest warm space is all the way down the hall, they've probably not been there yet. They're not immediately looking for warmth. They're immediately looking for a place to hide. So once they've hung out in that hiding spot for a while, maybe they took a nap, they're going to venture out again and then find another hiding spot. Remember that snakes often choose security over thermoregulation. So if there's an enticing, small, dark space, they don't care what the temperature is. Now, if it's small, dark, and warm, that's just a bonus. But that means shoes. Don't start jamming your feet into shoes if your snake is still missing. A pile of clothing is a great spot for them to hide. If you have clutter in the area, carefully look through all of that and keep your cats and dogs out of the area for now until you find your snake. The idea here is to search everywhere in the near vicinity, not just a cursory search and then run into another room. So you're going to search very thoroughly and then slowly widen your search. Use a flashlight. Even if you have good lights, a flashlight is going to help you get really specific about where you're looking. Do you have a refrigerator or a freezer in the vicinity? A snake will find a nice dark spot under that and behind it, as well as some warmth, because those put out heat as they cool everything on the inside. Obviously, be really careful if you're moving anything heavy if you don't know if your snake is under there or what position they're in. That goes for moving a couch or anything like that. Your snake could be really vulnerable, wrapped around a leg, or having squished themselves under something. I get messages all the time from people asking me how to find their missing snake, and I got one the other day where the snake was already found within half an hour, which is great, but it was found behind a mini fridge and it had a big gash on its body. We don't know how it got that gash, but it was probably on some sharp edge of one of those appliances. So they're really dangerous. Your snake could do it to themselves while they're just crawling along an edge, or you could accidentally do it by pulling the appliance out. So just go really slowly, thoroughly, and carefully. Snakes can open any cabinet or closet door, anything that's not latched, so you might be using that flashlight as you pull all the games out of your game cabinet. Now here's an easy one. If you have a rack and maybe left a tub open, don't worry. Your snake is in the rack behind the other tubs. Start pulling tubs out, find your snake, and comment below, "Thanks, Bob." If your snake got out during the day, keep in mind that they probably just hid and fell asleep. They're going to be roaming again at night, especially when the lights are out and things are quiet. Plan to check for them periodically at night. If you have a non-carpeted floor, you can sprinkle flour or rice to pick up a trail. You're not really going to get a trail, but at least you can determine what part of the house they might be in as they crawl over that. And remember, the snake is most likely going to move with its body touching the wall. They're unlikely to cross a room diagonally out in the open unless they've been out in that room a lot and know that room really well. So focusing your efforts along the wall is best. You could take a heat mat set on a low temperature with a thermostat and place a hide box on top of that, put all that in a corner. There's a good chance that you'll find your snake there eventually. You could also place a thawed prey item in there if your snake is food motivated. And plan to stay up or set your alarm a few times during the night. Here's an idea that I think I heard from Emily at Snake Discovery on one of her videos, which is I think she was saying a plastic bag. Anything, actually, you know what would work better is tissue paper. So take a plastic bag or tissue paper, crumple it up a little bit, and stuff it somewhere where the snake is likely to crawl. That's a really quiet alarm. So keep your ears open, and when you hear that crinkling, there's your snake. You could also do that with like wind chimes. If you have wind chimes that you could sort of dangle close to the floor. I actually tried these. I've got these bells up here that I was just recently trying. They don't work. Wind chimes would work though. Those would actually make a ding. Those things, I bought those on Amazon for $5, so now I have decorative bells for no reason. But anything that actually makes noise. If you don't find your snake within a few days, don't give up hope, because a snake can live a really long time in a house all by themselves. You can find them a month or 2 months or 3 months later, long after you decided that the snake must have gone outside. They can even live longer than 3 months. By the way, I geared this to finding a ball python, but most other snakes will be about the same techniques. If I were looking for Echo though, my super dwarf reticulated python, I would look up, because arboreal and semi-arboreal snakes are more comfortable when they're up high. So it's unlikely that I would find a ball python up on a curtain rod, but if I were looking for a reticulated python or a super dwarf or something like that, anything arboreal, boa, you'll want to look up also. Thank you so much to the Patreon supporters, some of whom are getting Green Room Pythons t-shirts this week. Let's talk about how to prevent this from happening. Hey, is it my turn? Can we cut to Kent's corner? Yes, Kent, that's good timing. Folks, my brother Kent, our cameraman, has a Kent's corner for us.
Hi, welcome to Kent's Corner, where the internet goes to do all the clicks. If your snake is missing, what were you even thinking having a snake in the first place? But here's how you find it. Have a seat on your couch and wait for your snake to sink its venom-soaked fangs into your neck from a well-orchestrated snake attack. And then, as you slip out of consciousness and then briefly back into a state of lucidity right before your death, you'll think, oh, there he is. Found him. Or, alternatively, you can leave your house and never come back again. Your choice. Thank you for watching Kent's Corner, where everybody comes to get all the information.
I mean, that was one of the worst Kent's Corners in several weeks.
Well, your whole face is the worst in several weeks.
Snakes escape for 2 reasons: equipment failure and human failure. Here are a few tips based on several different types of enclosures. Snake rack? Make sure your tubs are closed. I've never heard of a snake escaping a rack due to equipment failure. How about a big long tub that's not in a rack? If they don't have locks in the middle here, your snake's gonna get out. And don't just pile books on top of the lid like a Barnes & Noble clearance table. Snakes are strong. Hey, quit it. Quit messing with the targets. Crazy girl. I use that tub as a quarantine tub sometimes, and I secure it with 2 luggage straps. Do you have a fish tank with a pile of stuff on top to keep the lid down? Your snake will get out. You need something better. Invest in a locking lid. Maybe you've got a locking lid, but it's old and the screen top is flimsy. You can expect your snake to pop a corner out eventually. You know, they can push on that enough, and then when they go through, they're gonna ruin all their scales as they try to really squeeze themselves through. I noticed that the original screen top on the Bioactive here was starting to sag just a little bit because the ceramic heat emitter was slowly softening the plastic on it. The inspector was messing with the lid at night, so I decided to replace it with a custom PVC lid from Focus Cubed Habitats. So he's for sure not getting out that way. But that snake that I told you about from that viewer who found their snake a half an hour later behind the fridge, they got out of an enclosure like this, a front opening enclosure, because someone forgot to lock it. So that's a really common thing to happen with enclosures like this. You've got to be super mindful just for that moment that you're securing your animal, that the door is closed completely and the lock is secure. You could have this door open and then lock it, you know, like it looks like it's shut sort of, and it locks, but it's still open. So you just have to be really mindful. Snakes are escape artists, and they will find their way out of any enclosure that's not absolutely secure. Do you have a really secure enclosure but also have children? You need locks. I see so many posts from people saying, my son knows not to play with the snake cage, but he did it anyway and he left the door open. Are you going in my shirt? Locks are good. Maybe you have children and they're not toddlers, so you're not too worried about that. So maybe you've got like a 12-year-old, but a video game is calling them, so they real quick put the snake back and their mind is on the video game, not on putting the snake away. You'll be posting about your kid leaving the door unlatched. So there should be some sort of protocol with your family that if anybody has the snake out, once the snake is back, there's confirmation that that door is latched and locked. And maybe you've got to check it depending on your kid or whatever. I'm a little bit OCD about this because there's nobody else in my household, but I've got a calendar reminder on my phone that dings every single night that says, lock the vivarium. I think there's only been one time that I've looked over at the vivarium and saw that it was unlocked before I went to bed. But, you know, I usually go to bed and then the inspector comes out. So if I had left that unlocked for the night, he for sure would have gotten out because he does push on those doors. If you've ever had a snake missing, put in the comments below how long they were missing for and where you eventually found them. I'll go first. Missing for about 2.5 minutes inside the rack. Yeah, push your tubs in. All right, I really hope you find your snake, and I'm confident that you will. Thanks for watching.
Seriously though, are all your snakes accounted for? Because after the holidays, I am not in shape for distance sprinting.